Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics as Nigel Farage makes another attempt to break through into the consciousness of MAGA Republicans with Donald Trump's second inauguration as president. The question is being asked whether his star will continue to rise in Britain or if he actually runs the risk of losing core support, and how would he lose that core support. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button so you stay notified. So, at the general election last year, Nigel Farage and Reform UK proved that it is possible to harvest a lot of votes on a narrow platform lacking in any policy details. Obviously, it needed heavy and uncritical platforming in the mainstream media, but Farage can count on that continuing to happen in the next election as well. He can also count on heavy promotion on social media if the law is not tightened up a lot, and not just on Musk's Twitter, but at the very least now Zuckerberg's Facebook, Threads, Instagram platforms as well. Ironically enough, people have pointed out that Threads was intended to take advantage of Twitter's growing unpopularity with certain groups and be a haven for them. It's now going to be the same sort of cesspit, meaning Blue Sky will benefit and Threads will be just a rubbish mascot for Twitter. And right now, things are going Reform UK's way. They continue to attract Tory rejects. Pollsters are consistently giving Reform UK a high rating now. Now, yes, I've said before, online pollsters have a history of inflating Reform's vote share. The only one that tended to be more accurate, Ipsos, hasn't actually produced a recent poll. But let's not kid ourselves. The inflation in that vote share is not so huge as to be able to say Reform aren't polling well. They are. In fact, it's reasonable to suppose that within the margin of error, like Labour, Reform and the Tories are sort of on par with one another right now. This is psychologically powerful for Reform UK because they feel they just need to convince people that it is they, not the Conservatives, who are the realistic, pragmatic vote for the right wing, and they could gain much more yet. In fact, to win that argument, it's more important for Reform UK to be ahead of the Conservatives than Labour in the polls. There are people on the right who do not like Reform UK. But Farage just needs to get them to believe two things, and he's got them. The first is that Reform UK are more likely to win an election than the Conservatives. This is a tough sell, but polling ahead of the Conservatives consistently will help. The second is to believe that Reform UK might not be their cup of tea, but preferable to the raging woke Marxists of a Labour government who are going to ban tea and scones after the next election. Achieve that and people will hold their nose and vote Reform UK at that election. It's absolutely the case that Farage could do much better in 2028 or 2029, whenever that election is. However, as I've discussed before, he is having to overreach in order to broaden the appeal of his party. You know, I've commented a few times, it's actually quite weird to watch how the right wing are behaving right now because Reform UK are actively broadening their appeal with their rhetoric since the election, which, you know, makes sense. But the Conservative Party are actively narrowing their appeal in the belief that that somehow helps them recover. But consider some of what Farage has had to do since July. First, explicitly disown not only Tommy Robinson, but his brother Grifter, but also Robinson's entire support base, even though there's a lot of crossover with their own base. This was always hinted at, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, before the election. But since the riots and since Elon Musk has become such a vocal standard bearer for Robinson, Farage has had to shout the message much more loudly in order to make sure that message is heard by his target voters, who he does not want associating Reform UK with Tommy Robinson. But the message is being shouted so loudly now that it is irritating his core support. As I've said before, at the local level, it is sometimes not just a case of people choosing between them, like you've got to choose between them. Like you might imagine someone can support Tommy Robinson and still vote Reform UK. It's like, yeah, sure. But what about the activists? What about the people Reform UK needs to be candidates, go door knocking, promote their party locally? These people are not allowed to get caught promoting Tommy Robinson, Britain First, or any similar groups. But fringe groups like this tend to meet with each other for social reasons as much as to froth about politics. They'll meet up to talk about politics, but it'll be over a pint or something like that. So Farage is effectively telling his activists to cut out some of their social life, which is a big ask for some. It'll limit their potential candidates. It will mean having to disown quite a few when it transpires that some of them think they have a cunning plan for being a Reform UK candidate while still boozing with the Tommy Robinson Appreciation Society. Second, Shamima Begum. Now, the teenager who was groomed by ISIS and fled the country, subsequently had her citizenship revoked and denied re-entry into the UK. This is one victim of a grooming gang that Farage has not wanted the government to help. But earlier this month, Farage had to change his tune, demonstrating what a good little monkey he is to Trump's organ grinder act. One of Trump's team said that foreign nationals in Syria caught up with the group should be returned to their own countries. That would mean a US expectation that Begum should return to the UK. Now, had the Democrats won the election and their own administration said this, Farage would be frothing about the temerity in adopting the class DUP battle cry of no, never. However, Trump's administration adopting this line. So now, acknowledging that this is a U-turn for him, Farage has said that, she should come back to the UK. He's admitted that this is uncomfortable for him, but, But of course, he's not doing that because Trump's people said so. No. He's had a think about it and with spectacular coincidence of timing, decided she is a lesser part of the equation, as he put it. Interestingly, Robert Jenrick attacked Farage for his change of position and made clear that the Tories would oppose Trump's wishes here. So on this point, Reform UK are going to seem more moderate than the Tories, but also close to Trump. And it will also upset some of Reform's core support as well. See, they only care about groomed girls when they're white. And Elon Musk also attacked Farage's position as well, setting him against close Trump allies. I look forward to that blowing up. I wonder which side will win. But in Britain, that's not going to play well with quite a lot of Reform UK supporters. In fact, you look at some of the lines against Farage building up. Claims to be on the side of working people, but has got 9 jobs as an MP. And he suggests, that if anyone tries to say, well, you can manage it all, he's wonderful, you see, some sort of unsleeping dynamo. Well, all you need to do is point out his less than impressive parliamentary attendance record and the fact he has to make a big song and dance every time he goes to Clacton because he's hardly ever there. He said he'd move there. Do you remember that? He said he'd move there. I don't think he has, Not long ago, he was selling gold bars, proper man of the people stuff there. Then there's his vocal opposition to Tommy Robinson and his movement, which creates real schisms within Reform's core support. And the U-turn on Begum is a really interesting one because it only happened because of Trump's position. There's absolutely no need to change his view on that strategically to chase after votes in the UK. That is not part of the broadening Reform UK's appeal. That is prioritising doing exactly what Trump wants him to do over broadening the party's appeal. So it suggests he's going to try to comply with sensible electoral strategy in the UK, but also try to align on everything with Trump as well. That's going to cause problems. What happens if he's forced to comment on something Trump is doing, which is wildly unpopular in the UK? I've said before, the mass deportations issue, that could come up. Remains to be seen just how hard Trump goes on that when all his billionaire backers are not wanting the government to get rid of their workforce. So despite things going Farage's way at the moment, there are already signs of cracks. The loss of 20% of the party's councillors, the spat with Musk, seems to have been smoothed over for now, but it still happened. And there's plenty more trip hazards for Farage over the next few years. Musk has now attacked Farage twice. First of all, for distancing himself from Tommy Robinson. And second, for his U-turn on Begum, which is actually in line with Trump's administration. It's not even obvious that Trump winning the election ends up working out well for Farage. And when Labour's plans start to deliver, and assuming they work out as expected, and there's lots of trip hazards for that, and the public see it, then Reform's vote gets squeezed there, leaving them in a dogfight for scraps with the Conservatives, with each one trying to side with Trump, but not owning some of his more unpopular moves on this side of the Atlantic. It's possible Reform could do better in the next election. At the moment, you would say they are on course. But there are also plausible outcomes over the next few years that could actually see them fall back as well. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.